This man that we're about to introduce is responsible for making sure that you love FloGrappling here soon. All right, so let's give it up for Ben Kovacs, the new general manager of FloGrappling. Is that an okay introduction, Ben? Would you say that's kind of within your scope of the job?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
For sure. So obviously we wanted to bring you on today. We wanted to get to know you a little better, let the fans of FloGrappling kind of see you if they haven't seen you yet, and kind of get to know more about you. So do you have kind of like a little elevator pitch, a little intro to who Ben Kovacs really is?
Yeah, I guess I'll save you all the long stuff growing up. But I mean, from a jiu-jitsu perspective, I've been doing jiu-jitsu 19 years. I started at the Yamasaki Academy, actually the same academy where Joe started a long time ago. And, I've always been a little bit of a jiu-jitsu hobbyist, I guess you would say. I always gravitated towards that sort of on-the-mat feeling that you got afterwards, the friendships, the community, and that's really what drew me into it. And about 10 years ago, I was training, and I was working at Twitter at the time, actually, and I realized, man, it's really crazy how jiu-jitsu has become such an elitist sport and that so many people can't get into it. And at that point, I made the decision to start what's called Guardian, or the Guardian Project. And today, Guardian has 27 academies around the world, over 500 kids training jiu-jitsu every day for free. That's really sort of like my life's work and my passion within the sport. And then that ultimately led me to come to Flow and try to basically do the same thing I'm doing at Guardian, which is obviously just, get more people excited about jiu-jitsu, get more people excited about Flow, make sure that we have the right offerings for people, and make sure they really know what we're doing. I think we have sort of a big communication problem here, in the sense a lot of people, grapplers in the world, don't know everything, and, really just see the sport of jiu-jitsu grow, both from the nonprofit side and sort of the more commercial business side. Yeah,
so obviously you come to this from a very different but also same background as a lot of us, like I hate to break the news to everybody watching at home, but us three right here, we're not elite businessmen, crushing deals and working all this stuff. Maybe Joe is, I don't know. Not you, Reed, definitely with a haircut like that, man. But you did obviously like kind of find success in the business world, right? At Twitter and everything, working at, I guess, what I would call success, a big name company. I don't know if that's considered success or not. Maybe you can tell us if it was successful.
What's it like working at Twitter? Sounds crazy. It sounds wild.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't say I'm that successful, right? I mean, I've done a bunch of different things in my life. I've done ad sales and partnerships, and I was the chief revenue officer of a big cannabis company actually out in California.
Nice, 420 blaze it.
There you go. Got to tie everything in with jiu-jitsu, right? So yeah, I've done a lot of things. I don't know, how successful I've been. I've had a really fun life and done things that I think are cool and that are fun. And obviously everything just kind of kept leading me back to jiu-jitsu and Guardian and everything that I was doing there. And that's why I was kind of happy when I found the Flow job of like, wow, like somebody wants to actually pay me to talk about and grow the sport of jiu-jitsu. Like I'm kind of already doing that. That's awesome. I can't believe you guys are crazy enough to pay me to do this. So yeah, I don't know if I'm like the world's greatest business success. I don't think I love the business side as much maybe as some people think. I think people that aren't doing the business side of the company sometimes think like, oh, the business guys really like love doing business. I actually think of the challenges we have at Flow is more of a creative problem, meaning like, how do we, create more interesting experiences for the fans? How do we message better? For example, we're growing our Brazil market a lot. Like, how do we market better to the Brazilian fans so they know that we have BJJ stars and we know we have IBJJF and we know we have Brasileiros? Like, I think a lot of people grappling in Brazil, for example, probably don't even know we exist or don't know that we have all those things and what a great value that might be for them. So that's the way I kind of look at it, is like the business stuff just kind of happens. It's like, how do you solve the creative challenges first?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, that is obviously something we do all have in common, is like, at our core, we all are jiu-jitsu guys, who just kind of, whether it be via luck or whatever, have kind of found ourselves lucky enough to be in a position now where we do get to like put all of our, like our thought, our focus into growing the sport and doing stuff about jiu-jitsu every day. We were kind of joking earlier that like, we should make like a day in the life of a FloGrappling content creator, except every single like time block is just like, now I talk about jiu-jitsu, but in a slightly more corporate way with these executive guys. And now I talk about it candidly between meetings. And now I train jiu-jitsu. And now I talk about it with the content team, just, it's kind of all we do all day is talk about jiu-jitsu, to be honest. So for you, you kind of mentioned, that you started with Joe and everything. Did you say what year and everything you started training? How long have you been training?
I started training in 2006, so about 19 years now. I graduated college in 2004, and I was playing basketball a lot at the time. And then I would go to the park, and the game started getting a little bit wonky. Either there's too many people there and you weren't getting enough exercise, or there's too few people there and you'd go home. And I was like, I really need to find something more consistent. And that was kind of what led me to jiu-jitsu. I had a friend that was doing it and started going there. And I was just instantly hooked. After like one class, I just never played basketball again. I think I've touched the basketball like 5 times in 19 years.
Nice. Good. I'm undefeated 1v1s in 2024. Undefeated. Or not 1v1s, but in pickup games. I played one time in 2024, 3v3 at Peace Park here in Austin. Got the dub ski. So
I love that. And I'm undefeated in 2025 jiu-jitsu competitions.
Oh, nice.
Hell yeah, Ben. Clap it up for Ben. Hell yeah. Undefeated.
Yeah.
That's what we like.
Can you dunk?
No, not anymore.
No? Not even, but you could?
Yeah.
I was going to say, you kind of got a build that you seem like you could dunk. That's cool. Can you dunk?
I don't think so. Probably not. I don't know.
Joe?
No.
Me neither.
Hey, Reed, I like the idea that like maybe I secretly could dunk.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not
Maybe
sure
I'm not taking it off the table completely, to be honest.
I
But
was like a barely, grab the rim, throw the ball in.
For sure.
Not
yeah. I can jump real high for sure.
Jump real high?
True. Me too. All right, so I wanted to ask you, Ben, kind of about flow specifically too, because you're in a unique position where now you've kind of came in as an outsider, but you spent some time with us. You've gotten to see like a lot of the business, a lot of the content, everything we're kind of doing here at Flow. So I don't know, how long have you been here now? Like a couple months?
Yeah, like 60 days almost.
60 days. Okay, so just off your first 60 days, what do you think FloGrappling's doing well? What do you think we're kind of falling short on? Where are we falling short for the community?
Actually, could I ask even a question before that? What was your opinion of Flow before you took this job?
Yeah, that's a good question. And now be careful. Reed's been here for a long time. I'm kidding.
Been around for 10 years. You have heard of this company. And if there's things that you don't think we were doing well, that's okay. But what'd you think of Flow before you came here?
I didn't, to answer that question completely honestly, I didn't think about it a lot. Like when I had used FloGrappling, and I was a FloGrappling subscriber to be clear before I started interviewing here.
Nice. But
I think like many people, I had signed up for a specific event, like, I want to watch my buddy fight on WNO, or I want to watch ADCC 2024 or whatever it is, right? And I don't even remember the exact time when I signed up, to be frank. But it always, I never
Leave
had
that rebill on. That's what we're hoping for. Let's go.
I would say a couple things, and I think this kind of dovetails right into Trey's question too, which is like, I wasn't, I would say, passionate about FloGrappling before I started working here, in the sense like I didn't have a problem with it. It worked for me. I never had issues with the streams. I never had payment issues, any of the things that sometimes people complain about. But I don't think I understood the investment that FloGrappling was making in the grappling community and for how long. And I think a lot of this has come to a head this year because you see the UFC investing $10 to $12 million in this press release in jiu-jitsu. And then I start, running the numbers and looking around here and looking at historicals, and I'm like, wait a second, we've been doing this for like 12 years. We've been investing tens and tens of millions of dollars before there was even an obvious business case or certainty that there was a business around grappling. And so that's got me thinking about a lot of things, which is the thing I think we probably do the worst here is the messaging around it. As you guys know, this is not a very like brand marketing heavy company, right? We're not doing commercials about Flow Sports. We're not doing a lot of stuff. We're buying rights and reserving rights for, a lot of our great partners in the sport, like IBJJF or ADCC or BJJ Stars and many others. And then we have our own WNO owned and operated properties, right? But I don't know that a lot of people realize that the investment that they're making in FloGrappling is really kind of an investment in jiu-jitsu. And an average grappler might spend $300 a month to train at a gym, $250 a month. And then they travel to their favorite tournaments. They pay tournament entry fees. And they have a seminar, somebody from their association's coming through town, and they take a private lesson with their coach to support them. And all of a sudden you add that up and you annualize it, and maybe they're spending between $500 and $1,000 a month on jiu-jitsu. But then when you annualize a yearly FloGrappling subscription at about $12.50, people go, oh my God, like so expensive. And I look at that and just think, that's just a messaging problem, because we have so much value with all of these different things that we're offering. Even if you only took advantage of a tenth of the content and the properties that FloGrappling has to offer on the platform, we need to, I think, do a better job of messaging that as a company of what you're getting there, so you view it as an investment, not only in yourself, but paying those athletes to compete on those cards, for example, right? We can't put on WNOs if people are not subscribing to FloGrappling. And I think that's like a really important thing when you can shift someone's mindset to saying, oh, I'm investing in the sport I love at $12.50 a month annualized, or $30 a month if on a monthly subscription. That actually, I think, kind of changes the way your brain works about something. Nobody wants to be in the expense column. They want to be in the investment column.
Yeah, for sure. So like, definitely we don't put a lot of messaging out there about what you really get from all that offering, you know, and everything. I know you've watched some of our content and everything. We're obviously the content team here. You're kind of like in this position where you tie a lot of the departments together. What do you think the content team's been doing well versus not? Do you have any favorite content out there or anything that you've been watching on Flow?
Well, first of all, not only do I like what the content team does in general, and I've been a fan, you know, of the content even before I started working here. But when I go around and I talk to people outside of myself, obviously it's hard to talk to yourself.
Disagree.
I kind of got that one locked in, brother.
We can do a podcast all day.
You guys can hit the bricks if you want.
I would say almost across the board, everybody's like, dude, I love your content team. They name you guys by name. They know who you are. They like your personalities. They feel some affinity to you because they're seeing you at their favorite tournaments. They're seeing your podcast, your show, etc. Like, I would say that's one of the shining lights of what we have here at FloGrappling and something we can really build off of.
Tell them, Ben.
I would say, like, you know, from the detractor side, whatever you say that.
I think that's one of the transformers, right?
If you were to be a hater.
If I was to be a hater, I would say that you guys are almost too good at grappling and too good at grappling knowledge, right? Like Joe, for example, knows every single freaking thing that happened at Brasileiros last weekend and every 12-year-old who won or lost or how many advantages they won by. And I think that is really great for like the 5% of the grappling community that thinks like Joe. But I would say that there's probably 95% that wants like more of a Cliff Notes version of that, right? Or they want to, you know, they're only tuning in, let's say, for the big drama. And, you know, for me, one of the things, like, although I don't want to talk about business and think about business, I really enjoy like the behind the scenes business of grappling. Like, how are these fights being made? Or how much are these athletes getting paid? Or, you know, why are they signing with one promotion over another? Or why are they exclusive? Why are the Rotolo brothers only fighting on one? Or, you know, why is Mikey on the UFC now? Like, those kind of things I think are really interesting to understand, and I think a lot of fans are really interested in that. And if you look at who the demographics of jiu-jitsu are, obviously you have kids and you have, you know, people of all ages, but, you know, you do kind of have a lot of that sort of like working male adult population as like a big core of jiu-jitsu.
Certainly.
Yeah, there's tons of, you know, jiu-jitsu is so big, right? And there's so many people who only consume one sliver of jiu-jitsu or don't watch any competition or anything like that at all. So the more we can, you know, just bring everybody in, because jiu-jitsu is large, but there's just so many segments that people can kind of be interested in. So it's just like finding every lane to speak to those people.
How do you stay, another way to say it, how do you stay authentic to real jiu-jitsu and cover the best people in the sport, even if they're not garnering the most eyeballs and the most, you know, revenue and everything that's maybe a business metric, while also covering maybe the drama or the more exciting stuff, the beefs, the things that might actually be the stuff, like the WWE part of jiu-jitsu, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. And like, how do you do both of those and do them well without sort of cannibalizing or bastardizing, you know, half of your audience?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, like, I think an easy example of that is like we do make like a lot of deep cut content, to be honest, like kind of what you're talking about, like some very deep cut, like niche stuff. I think to the point, to be honest, like some people, one of the classic narratives is that we only cover like this 5% of people, but I would go as far to say is like, I think most people just watch the top 5% of people, to be honest, because it's like, I don't know, man, I've made videos with like Polish colored belts that like no one's ever seen before, and like even this last example of a thing is like our photographer Dom, like who is super deep in the community and stuff. He was asking me one time, he's like, why don't you guys ever go make like a video about Gabby Pisania and dive into who she is and all this stuff? And I was like, oh, did you watch the Road to Worlds episode where we go to City of God, the place she's from, like a favela that like no one can go into? And we went there and like kind of, it was a risky thing, you know, kind of scary thing. And we made a video about her origins and all that. And he was like, oh, actually, no, I haven't watched that. And it's like, oh, okay, so the content does exist. You just hadn't actually seen it yet.
And that just goes back to like the messaging stuff
Exactly.
that Ben was talking about, messaging and just making sure that stuff gets out in front of the right people.
Yeah, so there is an element where it's like, I don't think we've ever made the how to tie your belt video, you know? It's like Keenan has that video, the Gracie guy has that video. So it's kind of like, yeah, there's a huge market of jiu-jitsu fans who do need that kind of like top level, like top of the funnel type of stuff to get in the mix that maybe we are missing the mark on, and like at least packaging our stuff in a way where like, yeah, you might not click on this video of a guy you don't know his name, even though we're kind of making it because we know you will know his name eventually. Like Pavel Javorsky at this point, like I think people know Pavel. Like he went on to beat Tommy, he beat a lot of people, and like kind of has blown up since then. He probably is going to keep making waves, eventually going to win trials, I would assume, like do some
Polish Reaper.
Exactly. But it's like at that time, no one clicked it, but it's like, yeah, maybe our messaging was wrong. You know, maybe it was like, it would have been better to package him in like a 10 uncovered jiu-jitsu gyms that you should follow, or I don't know, you know, some stuff like that to kind of appeal to more of a broader audience, kind of like what you're saying and everything. But
well, it's a big challenge when you think about it, because when I talk to people about why they subscribe to FloGrappling, it's almost always a different reason. Some people are just there to watch their own competition footage or have historical records maybe of their matches. Other people just want to watch WNO super fights. Other people, you know, train gi versus no gi. So all the content you have, if you're just a 10th planet gi guy, a no gi guy, let's say, you don't care about any of the IBJJF or gi content that's on FloGrappling. Like literally have zero interest. So it's very hard, I think, because everyone has such a different interest in jiu-jitsu to really like nail everybody down to sort of this like one size fits all thing, which is challenging when you're deciding how to make the content, because you know that no matter what I make, like 70% of the people are not probably interested in it. So I'm only going to focus on that 30%.
Yeah. All right, so another topic I wanted to cover with you, all right, because this is a big topic on this show, at least for the commenters. We've addressed it multiple times, but like there was a time where obviously CJI and ADCC and Flow were kind of in this weird space, you know, in the jiu-jitsu world. And we still get people commenting and saying stuff like, when are they going to talk about CJI? Even though we do talk about it all the time now. We made a specific podcast only talking about CJI, to be honest, like uncovering kind of all that stuff.
I was up until 5 a.m. doing live updates this weekend for CJI.
Yeah, but you bring in a kind of new, completely fresh dynamic of FloGrappling, CJI, Craig Jones, you know, in this modern era where Craig is kind of like the grappling kingpin at this point. You know, everyone's turning to Craig for a lot of stuff, where you have a close relationship with Craig. You were at CJI, right? Like, I believe you weren't there, but you were a big part of it, right? Guardian was one of the major aspects of CJI, but you have an ongoing relationship with Craig and Seth Belial, like a working relationship stuff. Craig obviously does a ton with Guardian Gym. So I just want to, I don't know, I guess like this is kind of we're entering a new era here at Flow, having you, where it's like you are this close connection with Craig and stuff. So I don't know, can you talk a little bit about your history with Craig, like how you guys came to kind of start fostering a relationship, how you work with him, how he works with Guardian, all of that stuff?
Let's get it all out into the open. We're down for it.
Yeah. You don't have to. You don't want to, I guess.
No. I'm just thinking like where to start. So,
are you afraid your boss is going to yell at you about this?
who's my boss?
Yeah, that's how I feel. And then they started telling me Reed was my boss, dude. And I was like, you guys have lost your mind.
Trey,
Reed is my boss, dude. This guy right here. This guy who put a Pablo. He sneaky put in a Pablo 50 for 30 seconds, dude.
You guys didn't even know.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Know. But so yeah, I guess if you give us a little bit of that background, Ben.
Yeah, so Craig and Seth are partners, and they did CJI 1 together. Obviously, CJI was a huge hit, and, you know, to put it all out there, I don't think because CJI was not associated with Flow last year, obviously Flow had the rights to ADCC. You know, my understanding, even though I was certainly not here at that point, was there wasn't a lot of talk internally at Flow, didn't really know how to handle it, and I think part of that, to be candid, is because you get partner pressures from different people, right? Meaning like if we're partners, if we're a right streaming partner with like an IBJJF or an ADCC or a BJJ Stars, they're going to exert certain pressures to say, hey, like maybe don't talk about this competing show, right? And that happened so abruptly and it was counter-programmed at the same time that I'm sure ADCC was not stoked about that and asked very nicely, I'm sure just nicely, for Flow to not promote CJI, right? Which then came to you guys to not promote CJI as the content arm of FloGrappling. So, it kind of makes logical sense, but I think it kind of puts you guys at a disadvantage because you're trying to be the authentic, open source for all grappling news that people can come and they can say, hey, when I watch the FloGrappling podcast, I can trust that the FloGrappling guys are talking about everything, right? Even if we don't have the rights to say PGF or EBI or, Fight Pass, whatever it is, you should be able to talk about it. And that is something that is certainly now changed. And we will cover everything, whether we have the rights to it or not, because if it's grappling and it's interesting and our fans and consumers want to see it, then they should be able to see it and hear your opinion on it. So that's, I would say, like a non-issue moving forward, just to be clear for everybody that's listening. With Craig in particular, right? There's no question that Craig is the most dominant voice in jiu-jitsu. At this point, he's, well loved. And I think CJI, obviously being such a success, just like really cemented and took it to the next level of not only do you have a guy who was a top 10 athlete, then a coach, then, now a promoter, right? Essentially of an event. So
I've been calling him a bon vivant. I feel like that kind of captures everything.
A bon vivant?
And I've been Googling what bon vivant means.
Every time.
I have no idea what that means.
Me neither. What does that mean, Joe?
Just means a guy who goes around enjoying life.
Oh, okay.
On like a professional level.
All right, cool.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason Craig can enjoy life so much is because Seth picks up so many of those pieces right behind the scenes and makes things actually work and keeps things on schedule, which is really great. And frankly, what you see in a lot of the best jiu-jitsu gyms, you have a business guy and a jiu-jitsu guy or girl, right? And that's what makes it work. Anyway.
Seth is his business partner. Earlier you said partner. I just want to clear it up for everybody because Craig puts a lot of stuff out there. I don't want a business partner.
No, I just said partner. I'm not.
No reason to put labels on this.
I chose my words carefully.
I think what actually Craig refers to Seth as his secretary. That's sort of the internal joke, just so you know.
Nice.
But anyway, Seth's actually the man. I have a very close relationship with Seth. We talk a lot. He's very plugged into everything that's going on in the jiu-jitsu world, obviously, from this. And he's just, his instincts are usually right, I would say. So last year at CGI, they said, hey, we want to make this a charity component. We're going after, this other group of folks who are not necessarily donating to charity. They're putting money into a production. We want to pay the athletes and we want to make sure that charities get paid. And they put a lot of money into charity, but the thing that I
love when charities get paid out of spite.
Yeah, exactly. That's and Seth, and I've had a lot of conversation with him, he genuinely wants this to be his legacy, right? His legacy will not, just like mine, and that's, I think, why we get along so well. Like Seth's legacy nor my legacy will be winning 6 IBJJF world titles or ADCC. The legacy will be like, can we create a better world through jiu-jitsu that our kids can be proud of, right? That's what we're both aiming to do. And last year, they made some donations to, I think, 3 different charities, $650,000. You can find it on their Fair Fight website. I know they made these donations. I've seen the receipts for those donations. But I think the problem is, like many times when people donate to charity, they didn't feel like they had something tangible there necessarily, meaning like the donation went out, they get their thank you letter, hopefully good things happen, but you can't feel, you can't touch it. And when Craig and Seth came to visit one of our academies that happened to be in Peru, I think they really fell in love with it because they fell in love with this idea of like meeting the kids, training with the kids, meeting the instructor, giving the kids gis, giving the kids rash guards. And now, building this new school together, which is really the focus of the charity aspect of CGI 2, what we're doing, which is we're building a brand new school, which is a weightlifting gym on the 2nd floor, a gym on the 1st floor, 6 Airbnb units. And all of that is so people can go down there and they can actually visit and they can see with their own hands, with their own eyes, where the charity money is going, and they can actually volunteer with the kids, but they can still have fun and they can go surfing and they can go eat a great meal and they can do all this other fun stuff. Like, charity's hard when it's not fun, meaning go pick up trash on the side of the street, right? It's good for your community, but it's going to be hard for you to do that every day. It's not hard for us all to go train at the gym and shake some kids' hands afterwards and give them some advice and, some natural mentorship, we call it. So that's what they're doing this year. And that's really our tie-in with Guardian and sort of this greater mission that we have together is, doing this in Peru. Craig's already been to Guardian Ethiopia now. He laid new mats down with his own hands there.
Shot some AKs with his own 2 hands.
Shot some AKs. And I think that's the juxtaposition of Craig, right? He's trying to show that like, hey, I can do all this crazy stuff that most people would get canceled for, but I can also make a positive difference in the world, right? And he's not trying to fake either one. He's like legitimately doing both sides. Like the things you see on his Instagram, like he's actually doing. Like those are not shticks for the most part, right? The bad things, the cancelable things. But then he's, giving hundreds of thousands of dollars of his own money, maybe millions now collectively from last CJI and this CJI, to charities and going and doing it. One of the coolest things I saw with Craig is when he went to Peru, he actually, one of the kids that was featured there in the episode with him, he started following him on Instagram and he started DMing him back and forth. And like, he's legitimately friends with this 17-year-old kid who was one of the first kids in the program. He's not just doing it for like a PR stunt. Whereas like when the UFC came to visit Guardian in LA, they came, they brought the fighters, and then as soon as it was done, they're like, oh, we're going to make a donation. And then they never did. Right?
Damn.
They just ghosted. It was a PR stunt. And I think that's what makes Craig so special, right? Is like he's actually doing it, and he's doing it without telling everybody that he's doing it sometimes, versus the PR stunt that just falls flat.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, to speak about Guardian a little bit more, I think that is one thing that you guys are doing at Guardian that's like really sick. And it is like, to be honest, it's a deep-rooted part of the jiu-jitsu culture that I think maybe a lot of Americans might not know, or a lot of people who kind of are on the new end of the grappling world haven't quite discovered yet. But like, if you go to like Manaus, Brazil, Manaus is obviously like a very hard place to grow up. Like it's like I don't know, you can go to Brazil, and like Sao Paulo is like basically New York City. You know, there's tons of infrastructure, tons of stuff going on. You can go to Rio and it's like a little less infrastructure. Everyone's trying to hustle you, but it's also like a great place to live and do all this stuff. And then you go somewhere like Manaus and it's like, ooh, okay, I'm in it now. Like it's the biggest city in the Amazon jungle. It's like pretty hardcore, you know, it's like rough to go around. Like I remember I went there one time with Fabricio, Diogo, and Mika, and whenever I got there, I was alone because the guy who's supposed to be with me, similar to Reed, you know, didn't make his flight in time. So I was just kind of alone in Manaus, and Fabricio and Diogo are like freaking out. They're like, dude, we think you should maybe just come with us and like stay with us until someone else gets here. And I was like, no, dude, I'll be fine. And then Fabricio was literally like, no, dude, if you go out in Manaus alone, you will die. And I was like, it's not that drastic. I'm going to Uber to the hotel and like stay in there. And I was fine. They don't know. Secret, if you're in a dangerous place, everyone watching at home, if you're the guy robbing people, you don't generally get robbed. So, you know, just right away pick somebody's pocket. Let's set the tone. I'm just kidding. But
it's like prison.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, it is a very tough place to grow up though. But one thing that they have in Manaus, to like a level that not a lot of other places have, is social projects. It's like there's every corner of every street in Manaus, there's a jiu-jitsu gym. They're not usually nice gyms. You know, it's like very rough, kind of like makeshift gyms. A lot of times people train on cardboard or whatever it is. And these are built like kind of by the people in communities and everything, so that kids have a place to go where they're not out in the dangerous world of Manaus. You know, they're not resorting to a life of drugs or a life of, you know, something that's not ideal, kind of like becoming just another statistic on this bad path, where they build these social projects to kind of give them a place and all of that. That's where like a lot of Melky's Galvão schools originated as social projects. He was part of like the BAPE there in Brazil. And then eventually he had to get off the streets due to some stuff, like whatever, like he was being targeted by people. So they decided to have him be the guy to start these social projects. That's where a lot of these kids came up, like Fabricio Andre, an original member of the social project that Melky started. And that is kind of the same thing you guys are doing. You're just you're dispersing it out into the world more so than just in these little hot pockets of Brazil, where this has kind of been going on for a long time. You're taking it to Peru. You're doing it in American communities, you know, that are underrepresented and everything. And I do think that's a very incredible thing, you know. And so I'm just curious, like, did you ever like look into how like some of these social projects in Brazil did it? Like, did you just kind of have the idea and just know like, man, these kids need somewhere to go? Like, how was some of that origin of Guardian? How did that come about for you?
Yeah, it really, it just started in one school in the Bay Area in Oakland. That's where it started. And then
that's the original. I always see like the shirts and stuff for the Oakland one. That's like kind of the start of Guardian and all that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it really, the genesis of it was that I was working at Twitter at the time. And I just thought, man, like, I keep hearing this is sort of the peak of the start of sort of, I don't even know what you would call that movement, where, you know, companies get really involved and active in things, and Twitter would dump millions of dollars into like San Francisco homelessness and mental health and all this stuff. But it like the problems were just getting worse. And I was just like, well, the more money we throw at a problem, it gets worse. Maybe that's not a great solution. Like, what if we just gave kids a place to go after school where they could train jiu-jitsu and box? Like, that was the original half boxing, half jiu-jitsu was really the idea for the original Guardian. Then along the way, COVID happened, which was a big change. Obviously, that shut down all gyms, especially a gym like that. It's kind of like the first thing to go, because you don't have this like passionate paying adult community who's going to sneak in the same way, right? You're going to have kids that are like obviously
black out the windows and everything.
Yeah, you know, a couple of those too.
I have no idea what you're talking about. For the record, this is all news to me. No idea what anyone's talking about.
We'll see your vaccine card after the show, Joe. But
I'm boosted.
But no, we started with one, and then I just realized, like, holy crap, there's like tens of thousands of jiu-jitsu gyms around the world. Like, this is crazy that like we are doing this and paying for the rent and paying for the insurance and manning a front desk and all these things. Like, what if we started getting calls from other people saying, how do I do this at my gym? And we thought, well, why don't we just do this other places? And so we sort of evolved into this model where US gyms could essentially bolt on a Guardian, whether it was like their only kids program or whether it was a new one, or whether it was like, a shared one, meaning like we'll carve out 10 scholarships in our normal kids class and we'll make that the Guardian program at our gym. And then internationally, almost like a Robin Hood, we take the money that we raise and then disperse it where it's much more cost effectively internationally, like Culiacan, Mexico, Vietnam, Ethiopia, Peru, et cetera, right? So that's sort of the model of how it evolved, which is much more cost effective. And I almost think of us as like a VC for nonprofit jiu-jitsu, whereas like we find a project and we start to fund it in some way. We give them gis, maybe we give them mats, maybe we give them a little bit of money to pay for an assistant instructor, whatever it is they need. And the better they do, the more kids they get in, the more impact they make, then we just keep giving more and more and more usually until we can make the ultimate difference there. And I think it's resonating with people. I think people are sick of charity, right? They're sick of this like give to the United Way, give to the American Cancer Society, 10 cents on every dollar that you donate gets to the actual cause. Like the new generation of people are data driven. They're, not dumb. There's technological platforms out there where you can look these things up. Like you're not going to fool people anymore. Like you're the way that your grandpa donated to the United Way. And so I think that's really what we're trying to do is make it really simple for everybody to understand. People who do jiu-jitsu get it. Like if I just had access to jiu-jitsu earlier in my life, I would have been a lot better. And that's it. That's the pitch. And I do it, to be frank, like I know a lot of nonprofits are grifts. I do it for free. It's just like a labor of love. I love the mission and what we're doing, and I really believe in it. It's not like something that I make a salary from or anything like that.
Gotcha. When are you going to get the boys down there to Peru, huh? I want to train with these kids. I want to see what they got.
Yeah.
I want to go see Sal again. Sal's down there, right?
Yeah, Sal's running it. Yeah, that's the real secret, right? Is finding that's with amazing instructor. And the guy who runs our Peru headquarters academy, we have 4 gyms in Peru to be clear, but the one who runs headquarters is actually a former training partner of Joe and I. That's how we kind of got linked there. But yeah, we should get the boys down after this build is done, post CJI. We should get the boys down there and do a little content show.
Let's do it.
Sounds great.
All right, so we're coming up on time here, but we got some rapid fire questions for you, okay? The hard-hitting stuff. This is our hard-hitting segment presented by Pablo 50s. Reed snuck it back in, so that means he's going to have some good questions for you. First question.
So let's just make sure we keep a camera on Reed to figure out how long he stays in. Yeah. Pressure him into keeping it in longer.
Exactly, but here's the hard-hitting segment. First question, were you the benefactor who gave all the money for CJI?
Yes.
All right, there we go. We found him. Second question. If there's a 1-to-1 clone of you, all right, direct clone, knows everything you know, exact same person, everything, would you be able to submit yourself? 10 matches, how would you be able to submit yourself?
Yes.
How many times?
Probably 10.
All right, let's go. You're just going to keep your
What's the thought process?
Yeah, what's the game plan here?
I really struggle with thinking while I'm doing jiu-jitsu, so I usually fall for like the same submissions, over and over. So
you get yourself 10 times with the same.
Yes. So it's not that the new guy would be good; it's that the existing guy gets beat too much.
Gotcha. What about passing your own guard? Would you pass your own guard?
For sure, easy.
Okay, fair enough. You had something, Reed?
I was just gonna say, well, yeah. You've been doing jiu-jitsu for 20 years now. What's your game like?
Very lazy old man game. So a lot of boring half guard, a lot of guard pulling in general. I don't think I've hit my first takedown yet. So really like kind of that old embarrassing game that everybody makes fun of today. Let's just say the Tackett brothers are not coming to train with me.
Nice.
Ben's a beast. We've trained with Ben.
Yeah, for
Ben's
sure.
a beast.
I remember you played a lot of butterfly. That was my takeaway from your game. You're kind of long and lanky,
You have a very similar game to Matt there.
For sure.
To be honest.
Matt's a little better.
The black belt we train with.
Yeah, and you're friends with him, right? You know him?
Matt V.
Matt
V-Bach.
Yeah, and so I guess like kind of final question here. I would say just for all the grappling fans watching, all the people who tune in to FloGrappling and, maybe some new audience members, anybody who might be watching this, what do you want them to know about the future of FloGrappling? Where are we headed? What's kind of your vision for Flow? What do you hope to achieve? Obviously it's like it's going to be hard to achieve anything we want. You know, that's the thing with setting goals and trying to do stuff. You know, it's like you got to aspire for something, but do you have that thing? Do you have a vision of like, this is where I see FloGrappling going, where I want people to know we're headed in this direction?
I think that the North Star of where FloGrappling can go and hopefully does go is that it's a place where you can come, to your earlier point, and get all the best authentic content, no matter where it's happening, the best, news, the most up-to-date stuff, so you know what's going on in the grappling world, while also, being able to get stuff that benefits your own game on top of that, right? So it's like a combination of those two things, while you feel like you're making an investment back into the community, because we're taking those dollars, right, that you're investing into FloGrappling for yourself, for both, content that you want to receive, as well as fixing your own game and things like that, seeing your matches, etc., but also knowing and doing a better job of telling people like how your investment in Flow is actually benefiting the whole grappling community overall, your favorite grapplers, getting them paid, putting on more shows, elevating the sport, etc.
Very nice. All right, there we have it. You got one more?
Well, I was just going to also ask too, just in general, just a little further back, but you were talking about starting jiu-jitsu in 2006. It's been a long journey. Just in general, like how you've seen jiu-jitsu evolve and grow over the 2006. Not much going on back then. I mean, obviously plenty, but just that overall kind of like evolution of grappling to where we are now, and just like what that journey's been like for you, and maybe what's the kind of like the I don't know, just the biggest thing that's happened over that time.
Well, I mean, there's like a million ways, obviously, to answer this question. We have to do a whole nother podcast, which I know Trey doesn't want to do. But I think that the one, I'll just call out just one thing that I think is interesting, and that is that as jiu-jitsu has gone on and there's more bends in the world, meaning these guys who are doing it for fun, who have been doing it for 20, 30, whatever years, you're starting to see like an aging of the demographic on the mat. And I don't think, if you think about back in the days of Hickson, like seeing a blue belt or a purple belt was like this huge deal, right? Like, oh my God, like there's a purple belt I could learn from. And now you go to, like, I went to a gym on Saturday for an open mat, and there was like 40 guys there over the age of 40. I went to AOJ a couple years ago for the 6 a.m. class, and I just remember there was like 8 guys on the mat who looked like they were over 60. And so I think that's like a really interesting thing, as of course the sport is growing on the lower end and we're paying a lot of attention to these kids and the competitors. What are we going to do with all of these hobbyists over 40, over 50 now, seeing these people stay on the mats? Like, they're going to want a different type of content and a different experience and a different, whatever you want to call it, than let's say the 20-year-old competition focused up and comers. And so I think it's like really exciting, because you're going to get to produce different content. You're going to get to talk differently to these people, and there's going to be sort of something in it for everybody. But I think that like that's one thing that I haven't completely wrapped my head around, like what we do about that. But it's just an observation that you're going to see a lot more people older sticking around jiu-jitsu, and they're going to want to have a reason to stay involved, right? They're going to want to have a reason to go out there on the mat. They're going to want to have a reason to keep that community. They're going to want to have a reason to stay in shape. It gives them a sense of purpose. And as we enter this sort of AI first world where we're all addicted to our screens, let's face it, right? The younger generation will even be more addicted. Will jiu-jitsu become even that much more important for the world as a place for us to escape and for those people to go to?
Right on.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, for sure. This is exciting times at Flow, exciting times in jiu-jitsu. So can't wait to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, so we're obviously all very happy you're a part of the team. It's great anytime, to bring in an actual jiu-jitsu guy, a guy who loves the sport, a guy who's been doing the sport for a long time. So, we're stoked to have you here. Hopefully we'll get to work much more together and everything, and grow something beautiful here. Not just for FloGrappling, but for the sport of jiu-jitsu. Everybody at home who loves jiu-jitsu, if they're watching this, then obviously they love jiu-jitsu too. And so that's kind of what it's all about. But thank you, Ben, for coming on. Great to hear your story. Thanks, a little bit, talk about everything. Everybody give it up for Ben. Everyone at home, clap along too. There we go.